I've said it before, and I'm starting to think even more, that Tesla is not going to produce a $25,000 vehicle, at least not to sell to customers. Plus, I really don't like to get into politics on this channel, but I kind of have to. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So I am going to touch on politics later on in the episode. I'm going to put a very clear dividing line. I'll put a table of contents down at the bottom, which will pretty much have two chapters, this part and the politics part. So if you're not interested, you can watch up till there and then skip the rest of it or something like that. Anyway, I'm just giving you fair warning, and I'm going to touch on it relatively lightly. I'm mostly interested in reasons and maybe a way forward, a path forward towards the future. I don't know. But first of all, what I want to talk about is the $25,000 Tesla, which, by the way, no matter what, is never going to be a $25,000 Tesla anymore. Inflation has made that pretty much impossible. So let's call it a $30,000 Tesla. I think that that is reasonable. You know, at the time they were talking about a $25,000 Tesla, the Model Y was in the order of, I think, $37,000 to $38,000, and now it's in like the mid 40s. So, you know, everything has gone up by $5,000 or so. So anyway, we're not talking about a $25,000 Tesla no matter what anymore. But let's just call it the lower cost mass market Tesla. Anyway, I don't believe that they are going to sell this to consumers, at least not in large numbers. I don't know. I've said before that I think Elon Musk might, just for the sake of saying he's done it, sell them for 6 months or something like that. But I'm talking about, I don't believe that they're going to ramp up and sell a large quantity of these things, which they would sell in the, you know, maybe not tens of millions, but at least 4 or 5 million cars per year if they wanted to. But I don't think they want to. And of course, if you missed it, a while back I did a video on the design of what the Model 2 or the $25,000 Tesla should look like. You should definitely watch that, at least to look at what the design of the car is, because I think my design is actually really good, and I'm going to go into even more why. So you're probably going like, wait, they're not going to manufacture this $25,000 or $30,000 car, and yet you're saying here's the design for the car and they should manufacture this design for the car. Well, yes, because they are going to manufacture this car, they're just not going to sell this car. And of course, the main reason that this is going to happen or not going to happen is because of full self-driving. We've already heard Elon Musk kind of make hints about the fact that this new car might not have a steering wheel, it might not have brake pedals. In other words, it might have 4 or 5 passenger seats and no driver's seat. Or, you know, I've heard other people say it could pop out and stuff, but that's kind of ridiculous. If you're going to do that, that's more complicated than just having it being there and just not utilizing it. But anyway, I think that really from the Q4 earnings call and things that Elon Musk in particular, and somewhat Zach Kirkhorn have said, there's an indication that they don't really see the need to sell these cars. And the reason why is basically full self-driving. So essentially, Elon Musk, he said by the end of 2022, so that's only, wow, it's only 11 months from now. It's already the end of January. So 11 months from now-ish, and I kind of agree with him about this, they're going to have a functionally complete full self-driving package that can drive on the city streets. Maybe not all the crazy corner cases like, you know, dirt farm roads in the snow and stuff like that. But that is fully level 4 autonomy. If you haven't seen that, I did an episode on all the levels of autonomy. So you can watch that episode and you can see how all of those things stack up. But I'm saying level 4 capable. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to have regulatory approval to do this. And of course, that's only in the United States and apparently Canada soon. So yay, it's good for Canada, but you know, it's got to expand around the world, and that's going to take time. But essentially, once they've solved it for one country, Europe will be relatively straightforward. I don't know about Mexico. It's a little bit crazy. You know, there's places like India and Pakistan and Nepal and stuff where I've been, and the traffic is insanity. And so those things are going to be a little bit more challenging. But a lot of countries, they should be able to roll it out relatively quickly because they should be able to overfit the solution to that given country once they have a basic solution in place. So anyway, full self-driving, yay. You know, the people who drive the cars, we own the cars, we get full self-driving, we don't have to drive the cars anymore once you get regulatory approval. All of that is really cool, and that's like, oh, yay. But the really big deal is robo-taxis, of course. And why this matters is that with chip shortages, with battery shortages, with labor shortages, with all that other stuff, producing, let's say 90 million EVs, something along those lines, is a big ask. That's the kind of global number of cars that have to be sold per year to keep the fleet going. That is a lot of cars to sell. And the problem is that most cars, most consumer cars, are used 5 to 10% of a day, right? So you drive it, you stick it in a parking lot, it sits there all day while you work, you get in the car, you go to the grocery store or the gym or something like that, it sits in the parking lot while you're there, you drive home, and then it sits in your garage all night or in front of your house or something, right? So it's not being used very much. So if you can take that 5 to 10% utilization and you can turn it into, let's say 70, 75% utilization, and the rest of the time it's charging. So when it's not charging, it's available to be used and it's being used. Then suddenly what you can do is you can knock the number of cars down by a factor of 10 plus. So instead of needing 90 million cars per year in the fleet, you might only need like 10 million cars in the fleet per year. So that's all you need to do, and all you're doing is replacing old cars that are robo-taxi cars. Now, this is a vision for 2030, right? Because you have to fill the market with all of that stuff, and then we're talking about a rotational thing. So for a period of time, they're going to need more than that. But what they've got is, if they've got full self-driving, essentially they can, if they can convince consumers, and I think in a lot of places they can, certainly in large cities, even in the United States where we love our cars for whatever reason, even in the United States in large cities, and certainly in most other countries, you will get rid of cars. People are happy to get rid of them because they're a pain in the butt, they're expensive, they cost a lot to insure, they cost, even with an electric car that doesn't really require a lot of maintenance, it just, you know, it's just something you have to worry about all the time. It's like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to replace the tires on this thing, or I'm gonna have to do that, and I have to put it in the garage, and I have to remember to plug it in at night, yada, yada, yada. Some people are good at that, some people are not so good at plugging cars in. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with owning a car that's expensive and annoying, frankly. And if you don't have to deal with that, as long as you can call up a car and say, I need to go to work. Now you can either do it on a schedule and say every morning at 7:45, I want the car waiting at my front door, and it just picks me up and takes me to work. Or you could also say, like, I just want to be able to call it and have it arrive within 5 to 10 minutes. So again, you know, it's kind of like Uber, but it's an even more advanced version of Uber. These cars are circulating around all the time. They pick you up, they take you to work, they don't take you to the parking lot. I, for one, park like 300 or 400 meters from where I work. So, you know, it's a walk, it's not that long, and it's nice for me. So it could drop me off there if it wanted, but it could also just drop me off right in front of the building where I work. And so that would mean that I could get there much more quickly and not have to worry about it. Don't have to pay for parking. Don't have to worry about parking, because some days when it's really crowded, it can be difficult to find a parking place at work. So, you know, you don't have to deal with all of that stuff, the expense and the annoyance of that, and it drops you right off where you need it to go, and then it goes on, and it does, you know, it goes and picks up the next person, and they go someplace else also. So that is a pretty nice vision of the future. I, for one, would be more than happy to give up my cars. There's an awful lot of stuff involved and a lot of expenses and things. I don't know if I'd give up my Model Y, but I'd certainly give up the other ones. You know, eventually I would, I guess, because it's driving you everywhere, anywhere, so what do you care? And of course, also, eventually robo-taxi. So at first it will probably be local. So let's say a family has like 2 cars in their family. They could give up one of those cars, keep the other one for like road trips or significant trips that they need to do. But over time, as these cars roll out, there's going to be the ability to not just rent them locally, or I don't know, rent is not the right word, utilize them locally. You might pay either a subscription or just a per mile thing, but whatever. So you're just driving around town. But eventually these things will be advanced enough that you'll be able to say, I want to go from here to my parents' house in Washington, D.C. It'll drive you there. You can do whatever you want. You can have, it's like a 9 to 10 hour, you know, drive to get there. So you could actually do an entire workday as long as you're working remotely. You do your workday, you get to the place, you're much more refreshed than you would be if you had to drive it, and then the car drops off there. And as long as the kind of circulation is working okay and there's not a deficit from one place to the other, that car can be utilized there until somebody needs to take it back west again, and then it works its way back to the west and gets back to where it was originally. Now, the other piece of this puzzle is that I believe that Tesla is not in any kind of super rush to even create this $25,000 car yet, because their Tesla Model 3 and Model Y, and then eventually the Cybertruck, are popular, super popular, and they also are already designed, the new ones, especially with the 4680 battery cells that they'll be doing in Austin really, really soon, I hope, that those cars are really rated for about 1 million miles, which means that Tesla doesn't really, what do they care whether the car costs them, let's say the car costs them for a $50,000 car, let's say it costs them $40,000, just as hypothetical, whatever, right? So it costs them $40,000 to build this car, they get $10,000 of profit on that car. Why do they care whether it costs them $40,000 or $30,000 to build the car? The car itself is kind of a negligible expense when you think about this car potentially lasting 10 years and being on the road for all of that time. They're going to make the fact of whether it costs them $30,000 or $40,000 to build the car is really inconsequential. So they could actually just keep cranking out Model 3s and Model Ys forever. People will probably own their Cybertrucks, but even those could be good to rent, right? Sometimes you got to go pick up some furniture or some lumber, so you just call up a Cybertruck. Don't have to own one. It takes you across the town to Lowe's or Home Depot or something. You pick up the lumber, you bring it back, it drives you everywhere. And then of course you unload it and you don't have to worry about that thing anymore because it's off doing something else. So even something like a Cybertruck I could see being a really nice rental thing, although somewhat more niche. But of course over time I think there will be an advantage to building a more compact car. For one thing, just getting around. In larger cities, and especially in places like Europe and I think in China and stuff too, there's a lot of places, and certainly in again like Nepal and India, there's weird little roads and things where a compact car will be advantageous. And of course it could probably go longer distances without needing to be recharged, because if you put a reasonable sized battery pack in a smaller, lighter car, it will be an advantage to that too. So I think eventually they will make a car like that. And again, I think that my design, which is much more like a Cybertruck, it's like a metallic, a stainless steel exoskeleton without paint on it that is designed to be super uber tough, will have an advantage. And so Tesla will do that. They might make it the same price as a Model 3, essentially. It might be a hatchback, but it might also be in the mid to upper 30s, because again, I don't think the cost is going to be consequential at that point. So what they might do is just kind of mishmash the Cybertruck and the Model 3 together and create a stainless steel exoskeleton car hatchback that will be pretty much indestructible. And that is the best kind of robotaxi car, because then, who cares if somebody opens up a door into it? It's not going to get hurt anyway. But, even if it gets scratched, nobody really cares. So I think the one thing about Model 3s and Model Ys is they're a little bit on the fragile side because they're aluminum bodies and they're painted and everything. So I could see Tesla doing a car, not really going for a $25,000 or $30,000 car, but going for a car that is $35,000 to $40,000 to build, but is a much tougher car and is specifically designed to just be a robo-taxi that they never sell to anybody. So that's my rationale for why I don't think that Tesla is going to ever sell these cars to consumers. I think in the short term, Model 3s and Model Ys, and then eventually the Cybertruck, are going to fulfill everything that they need it to. Their demand is ridiculous. They can't make these cars fast enough. They don't have enough batteries over the long term to build 20 million cars per year. Maybe they will. But I don't think that they need to. I think what they're thinking is we don't need to build 20 million cars per year. So it's interesting. I'm starting to wonder whether they have Austin and Berlin coming online, and they've said they're looking at new factories for maybe to break ground in 2023. So maybe 2 more factories just to sort of, again, geographically diversify around the world. But then I don't know that they'll feel that they need to build any more factories for cars, at least. Of course, for the Tesla bot, they may build a bunch of new factories. And of course, I just did a video on that. If you haven't seen it, I think it's a really good one to watch. So anyway, I think that they are really starting to put a lot of eggs in the full self-driving basket. I think that they are really getting convinced that it's going to happen. I know they've said it for a long time. I know Elon has promised it for a long time, but I personally am believing that from the data points I have, and I'm starting to really, really think pretty strongly that that they are right, and they're going to get full self-driving, and they're going to have it for a long period of time before anybody else does, which means that they're going to end up probably having to license that to other car companies. So overall, what's going to happen is there's just going to be a robo-taxi market within, I don't know, let's say 5 years. It'll really get ramping up, and by 2030 or so, it's going to be something where owning a car is a real choice that I guess only relatively wealthy people, or people who have, if you run a construction company and you need to have ladders all over your truck and stuff like that, obviously you need it for that. But most consumers are going to find it to be less expensive to just rent the car whenever they want or utilize the car whenever they want. And Tesla, I think, is planning on being in the driver's seat for that. They're planning on being the ones who just hold on to it, and they may spin off a company that's, Tesla robo-taxis along with Tesla insurance. And again, I did an episode on that, and that is when the robo-taxis come online, Tesla is now responsible for the insurance for those things, and having a Tesla insurance arm at the same time means that they automatically have insurance for their robo-taxis. So they're thinking 4D chess moves, all along this stuff. So anyway, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think we're ever going to see a $25,000 or $30,000 Model 2 for sale to consumers. I think Tesla's plans have changed in that. Again, maybe for a very brief time just to say that they did it, but I don't even know that Elon cares about that much. But what I do think is we're going to see robo-taxis, and I think that we're going to see a new model design that's specifically designed for robo-taxis. But in the short term, I think it's going to be threes and Ys all day long. All right, and now on to politics. As I'm sure people have probably guessed, this is about the fact that the Biden administration absolutely will not say the name Tesla or Elon Musk. It's like he who must not be named in Harry Potter. It's kind of ridiculous to the point of comedically stupid, right? It's gotten to the point where everybody is starting to notice that he's not mentioning Tesla or Elon Musk. So it's gotten a little ridiculous. So the why about this, it seems almost definite that this has to do with I think the United Auto Workers, perhaps more than Ford and GM. But it has to do with that sort of backing, and somebody is telling the Biden administration not to talk about this at all. Now, of course, what I'm going to hear from people is like, oh, should have voted for the other guy, should have done this, should have done that. I completely disagree with that. I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, I think that this is a hopefully localized sort of situation with Tesla. It is utterly bizarre because Tesla is an American company. It's an American success story. You've got an immigrant who came to the country with very little in his pocket except, big dreams and intelligence. And he has made not only something for himself, but something for everybody. And there's SpaceX also. And I've noticed that the Biden administration, even though NASA is contracted with them, he doesn't talk about them either. So it's just kind of bizarre, but that's the facts of the matter. Now, what do I think that his handlers should tell him is that they need to sort of cut bait and figure out what to do. They need to cut their losses at this point. It's becoming a big enough deal that he's not mentioning them that he needs to do it. Maybe what'll happen is he'll do another very large EV summit and then sort of sneak an invite into Tesla and just allow them to be there, whether Elon Musk would go or not. I think Elon Musk would go just to rub it in a little bit. But anyway, he needs to do something where he starts to bring them back into the fold, and probably in a subtle way, just because that's the way politicians work. They never admit that they were wrong. But it's gotten to the point of ridiculousness, and the Biden administration really, really needs to actually say the word Tesla. It's crazy. I almost at this point wonder if somebody said, hey, do you remember that famous 19th and early 20th century scientist, Nikola? And he would go he'd say oh, I don't know what his last name is, So I think it's gotten to that point that it's just become a joke. And when you are a joke as a politician, that is not a good thing. So whatever they do, the Biden administration needs to figure out a way to reintroduce Tesla into the fold. Not only is it the right thing to do, and that's the number one reason, but number two, this is politics, and you're making yourselves look like fools in politics, and you don't want to look like fools in politics. So I think there's fear. I think that there is a definite being fed by the United Auto Workers in particular, who know that they're in really, really big trouble right now. They know that you've got these non-union plants from Toyota and Hyundai and Tesla and others that are not using union labor, and they've got plenty of people working at these places, and that the Michigan-based, Ford and GM and to somewhat Chrysler, Stellantis, whatever the hell they are. But those companies are on the way out. They're on the wane. And so you've got a desperation on the part of the UAW and GM and Ford. I think Ford is the best positioned of the American companies besides Tesla in terms of making it through. But even they're going to have a really, really rough next few years. So anyway, I think there's an awful lot of fear going on and everybody's clamped down, and that the president, for whatever reason, has decided to go with that. I mean, I know money, whatever. But I'm saying, like, originally I can understand it, but as things started to escalate, he needed to fix that problem before it got to this ridiculous state. So now it's going to be an embarrassment no matter what, because the first time he says Tesla or the first time he invites Elon Musk to something, it's going to be all in the news. But I think at this point, you pretty much have to cut your losses. So my advice, not that anyone in the Biden administration is paying attention to me, is you guys better start mentioning his name soon, and you better talk about him and normalize that part of it, and then people will forget about the fact that you were embarrassingly not mentioning his name, when quite clearly Tesla is the leader in the United States and globally in the EV transition. All right, enough of politics. I hope you enjoyed this episode, especially the first part, and found it fun and thought-provoking. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments, and also please like this video because YouTube's algorithm really rewards people for liking videos. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this because YouTube's algorithm really rewards channels that get more subscribers. So thank you. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You all are wonderful. Again, this episode, some of the thought process that was bubbling along came from conversations with Patreon patrons. So thank you all so much. And of course, if you want to join the club, just check out the link in the description. Also, a big announcement here. I am now translating some of my videos into Spanish. There's a lot of Spanish speaking people out there who are really interested in Tesla and technology and so forth, and they have not had an outlet that I've seen that's really good, except for like Alejandro, who does a great job. So anyway, I wanted to get some of my videos translated. The first one just went online yesterday, so definitely check that out and let your Spanish-speaking friends know about it. And if you're interested in some awesome merch, check out the link in the description. We've got the TeslaBot t-shirt, which is super popular these days. Don't mess with Tesla. Lots of other t-shirts, tumblers, mugs, etc. So check out the link in the description and help the channel out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.